else? Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has made some, well, shocking revelations about his political decisions on various aspects during his time as Deputy President. We're joined now by the political analyst Levy Ndou. Levy, good evening to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. The President's starting off today by saying at the Zondo Commission that when he started to hear about some of the issues around state capture, he took a decision to stay in the system to try and change it from within. Was it the right decision, do you think? I mean, can he argue that strongly?
Well, I think based on our expectations, you would have expected the President to say, immediately when I heard about state capture, I then decided to raise an alarm and maybe talk to other people within the ANC to establish exactly what is happening within the party. The decision to just say, I had to sit down and make an observation and then at a later stage takes a decision, it actually puts him in not a very good position in the public eye. But at a political level or at based on the party processes, maybe one would say he wanted to have time to have a discussion with his members, or he wanted to start by assessing what is actually going on within the party. But what I also found to be more interesting is that there seemed to be a level of comfortability on the part of the ANC leaders to say whether we have succeeded with cadre deployment or not, we don't care. We have to continue with cadre deployment whether it has got its own negative implications on society.
I mean, the idea is, I suppose the argument would go like this. President Ramaphosa says that he wanted to stay within the system to try and resist the worst of the corruption, if you like. But this is an incredibly self-serving decision. The consequence of that decision was that Ramaphosa himself became president. I mean, it's incredibly self-serving, isn't it?
Indeed. Maybe one will also look at it on the angle of saying he saw everything happening, but he was actually waiting for his moment to actually become president, because in any way, he wouldn't have been able to become president if he had actually left his own party, the ANC. But as a process man, maybe one would say he actually wanted for the right time to come where we would be able to raise these issues with some of his comrades and turn things around. Now the question would be, Stephen, has he been able to turn things around within the ANC at that period? I don't see that having happened, because I think the moment for South Africa to know about state capture and to have the commission sitting now, it only came after the State Capture Commission was established. The question would be, what if the commission has not been established? Was it that Ramaphosa would have done if nothing like that had actually happened? And that actually raises a number of suspicions. But at the same time, we also have to look at it from another angle that says that maybe those that were involved in the activities of state capture would have tried their best to behave in a manner that nothing is being seen by those who are suspicious, and make them to believe that everything seemed to be right, whilst a lot was actually going wrong. And maybe that will be another argument that Ramaphosa could raise. But on the side of the public eye, and from the people that are actually looking from a distance, they would actually say Ramaphosa should have been bold enough the time he heard about these things, and he would have made a huge announcement at the time, which was actually going to make a huge difference at the time, because all the things are actually coming up now. And in my view, I think it's quite late, even though at a party level or at government level, many things can still be redeemed. But I think the ANC leaders, including Ramaphosa, actually waited for too long, and whilst a lot was actually happening within government and in the party.
Well, one of the key breaking points, it seems, was clearly December 2015, the decision by Jacob Zuma, president as he then was, to fire Nhlanhla Nene as finance minister and replace him with Des Van Rooyen. And Ramaphosa saying today, this is one of the key revelations today, I thought, saying today that he actually threatened to resign at the time. Now, this is a huge threat to make. Ramaphosa had only been deputy president for about 18 months. And if he hadn't resigned, Zuma would have known that he was weak. And yet, in the end, the threat clearly worked, because Zuma, it wasn't just Ramaphosa, other people put pressure on Zuma as well, removed Des Van Rooyen and replaced him with Pravin Gordhan. And Pravin Gordhan, it could then be argued, tried very hard to resist state capture.
I think that would be one strong point where Ramaphosa would say, this is one area where I made it bold and I spoke directly to the president to say, if this continues, I'm actually going to resign. And I think it might have been a turning point in the state capture project in terms of destabilizing this project and in terms of ensuring that other people, or within the ANC and outside the ANC, that the issues of state capture are now coming out into the open, and everybody else seems to know that there are certain activities or projects that are taking place within the ANC. But also, I would have thought that at that moment, we should have seen a huge group of ANC members starting to speak up very openly against the activities of those that are involved in state capture, in order to create a strong awareness within the ANC and outside the ANC. But what did we see? We saw members of the ANC in parliament continuously supporting former President Zuma, even though there were a lot of allegations that were coming from the opposition benches and from other sectors of society. And it was until very late when they then decided to say former President Zuma has to get out of office. And I would imagine the type of damage that was actually taking place from 2015 until the departure of former President Zuma from office. But also quite interesting is that there seemed to be a well-organized and oiled system, or of certain individuals who were organized in order to ensure that they participate very actively in the activities of state capture. And these people would meet constantly, strategize to ensure that their agenda is actually being achieved. And the unfortunate part is that those that saw these things happening, those that were not participants in these activities, kept quiet, and that's why we are in this situation today.
Levy, it also means, I mean, from December 2015 onwards, it means that Zuma was president, Cyril Ramaphosa was deputy president. They had 2 more years' worth of cabinet meetings, physical cabinet meetings in those days. I mean, the relationship between them must have been terrible. It was clear that Ramaphosa and Zuma had different agendas. One was deputy to the other. And yet there they were, sitting in cabinet meetings, ANC meetings, presumably every Monday or every second Monday. And clearly they didn't trust each other. And yet, on stage, every January 6th, every January 8th statement of the ANC, there they were celebrating together.
The question would be, to which extent did they relate with one another? If it was only at cabinet, where they will just sit and meet, and thereafter they part ways, to which extent were they briefing each other about the activities of government? To which extent will they sit together as president and deputy president and talk about issues of the ANC and issues of government? To which extent would they then sit down and develop the strategy of the presidency in dealing with matters of national importance? And for me, I've got a feeling that none of that did happen. And that's why my observation is that there was a delinkage between the president and the deputy president, and hence you'd hear the deputy president saying, there are some of the things that I did not know about, and that is the revelation that we're actually getting today. The unfortunate part is that former President Zuma couldn't come and explain himself to the commission so that we should actually get both sides of the story. And at this stage, It's the word from President Ramaphosa, and that is what we actually have to take and live with. But